explain what a function. A function, and I will now in something that in very abstract term right now is something that will take an input and it will match on the input. It will look at the input, it will do something that the input, and based on what that input is, it will produce a gift output. What is an example of function? I could have something like f of x and x. Then to be the variable moves into the function, and the name of a function f then. To be the mass of a variable, but we will see that you can use other is equal to. Let's say x squared if x is even. X, and let's say it is equal to x plus 5 if x is odd. What would happen if we input 2 into the function? The way that we would denote inputting 2 is that we would want to evaluate f of 2. They is saying let's input 2 into our function f. And everywhere we will this 2 into our function f. And everywhere we will see that this variable you can keep of you as a placeholder. Let's replace it with our input, so that if 2 is even, do 2 square. If 2 is odd, do 2 plus 5. Well, 2 is even, so we're going to do 2 square. Is the case of f of 2 is going to be 2 square or 4? What would f of 3 be? Well, once again, everywhere we say this variable. We will replace it with replace input. So f of 3. 3 square is even 3 plus 5 if 3 is odd. It is going to be equal to 8. You might say, okay, this we can of an interesting way. To define a function, a way to can of mass on this number. But I could have done this with traditional equations. In some way, you might say, okay, that's neat solved. The risk again is interesting. Why? To define a function, a way to can of this number. But I could have done this with traditional equations. I some way, especially if you allow it. We do use the square root bracket things. What kind of a function do that? Maybe my traditional toolkits may have not been expensive about. Well, you could even do a function like this. Let's me not use f and x anymore. I could add a question to next largest number that. Start with the same letter as variable and we were going to assume the we are dealing is in English. Given that, what is h of 2 going to be? We will to start with a t. What's a next largest number that start a t going will it's going to be equal to 3. Now, what would of I don't know, let's think about this. H of 8 equal to, we will 8 start with an a, the next largest number that start with a is not 9, then it would be 11. And so now you see it a very general tool. This function that we just defined, well, we will look at it. We will look at you have seen this thing like you have seen things like y is equal plus 1. We read the as y is a function f of x, which is equal to x plus 1. If you give us an input, let me write. This is why, for example, when x is 0, we could say f of 0. F and 2. Let me make two tables x and put our y is there. X, y, 0, 1. I'm sorry, it's 3. 1, 2, and 3. You may say, will that what's the full point of using the function national verb to say f of x is equal to x plus 1? The follow point is to think, is there more a general terms? For something like this, you did not really. I have to introduce function nationals, but it does not hurt to introduce function national because it makes it very clear that the function takes an input. Take my x. In this definition, it must on it. It say okay x plus 1, and then the produce one more than, so her whatever that input is, the output is one more that the original but made original input. Alright. Well, we not is not a function then. Well, remember. For example, and let me look at a visual way. Of thinking about a function, this time, or a relationship. I should say, let's say that our x exists. Let me draw a recycle here that has radius 2. This is a positive 2. This is a negative 2. So my circle is centered at the origin. You may circle this granted the origin. What is the radius? That's my best attempt at drawing the circle. So this is a circle. The equation of this circle is going to be x square root plus y square root is equal to the radius square root is equal to 2 square root into its equality 4. The equation is it is relationship between x and y. Here I life expensive and as a equation. Here I will visual draw all of the x and the y that's this v. This equation is this relationship between x and y a function, and we can see visual that it is not going to be a function. You pick a give x. Let's say x is equal to 1. There's two possible the associated with it. And down. What x is equal to 1, we get squared plus y squared. Plus 1 plus y squared is equal to 4. Or subtracting 1 from both sides, x squared is equal to 3. Y plus minus square root of 3. Direct root over here is the positive square root of 3. So this is situation, this relationship, where I input a 1 into my little box here. The one I associated both a positive square root of 3 and a negative square root 3. This is not a function. I cannot associate it with my input to different outputs. I cannot only have one output for given input. A relation and function is the relation given by the set of ordered pairs shown below a function. Negative 3, comma 2, negative 2, comma for negative 0, 0,5, negative 2,6, and 3,8. Below a function. So before we even attempt to do this problem, right here, let's just look here what a relation is and what type of relation can be function. So in relation, you have a set of numbers. That you can kind of view as the input into the relation. Domain. You can view them as the set of you can view them as the set of numbers over which that relation is definite, and then you have a set of numbers that you can view as the output of the relation, or what the numbers that can be associated with anything in domain, and we call that the range. And it's a fairly straightforward idea. For example, let's say that the number 1 is in the domain, and that we associate the number 1 with the number 2. In the range. So in this type of notation, you would say that the relation has a 1, 2. Is in a set of ordered pairs. These are two ways of saying the something. Now the relation can also say hey maybe if one have two. Maybe that is associated with two as well. So 2 is also associated with number 2. Two, 2. And so notice I'm just building a bunch of associated. I visually draw them over here. Here I'm just doing them as ordered pairs. We could say that we have the number 3 is in our domain. Our relation is definite for number 3. And 3 is associated with, let's say, negative 7.
So this is 3 and negative 7. Three, comma, negative 7. Now this type of relation like over here, where if you give me any member of the domain and I'm able to tell you exactly which member of the ring is associated with it, this is also referred to as a function, and in a few seconds I'll show you a relation that is not a function, because over here you pick any member of the domain. Because over here you pick any member of the domain, and the function really is just a relation. It's really just an association sentence challenge. A mapping between members of the domain. And particular members of the ring. So you give me any member of the domain, I tell you exactly which member of the ring it's mapped to. You give me one, I say hey, it definitely maps it to 2. You give me, it definitely maps to 2 as well. You give me 3, it's definitely associated with negative 7 as well. So this relation is both it's obviously a relation, but it is also a function. Now to show you a relation that is not a function, imagine something like this. So once again I'll draw a domain over here. And I do this big fuzzy cloud looking thing to show you that I'm not showing you all of the things. I'm just picking specific example. And let's say the big fuzzy cloud looking thing is the rain. And let's say in this relation, and I will build the some way that we build it over here. Let's say in this relation 1 is associated with 2. So let's build the The set ordered so 1 is associated with 2. Let's say that 2 is associated with negative 3. So you'll have 1, 2, 2, negative 3 over there. And let's say on top of that we also associated 1 with number 4. 1 with number 4. We also created an association with 1 with number 4. So we have the ordered pair 1, 4. Now this a relationship. We have its definite for a curtain. If this was, then the entire domain is just the numbers 1, 2 is definite a relation, but this is no longer a function. And the reason why it's no longer a function, it is if you tell me, okay, I'm giving you 1. In the domain, what members of the rank is 1 associated with? Over here, you say, well, I don't know. Is 1 associated with 2? Is 1 associated with 2? Or is it associated with 4? It could. So you don't have a clear association. If I give you 1 here, you're like, I don't know. Do I hand you a 2 or 4? That's now what a function does. A function say 3. I know I'm giving you a 2. If you give me 2, 1, give me 2, I know I'm giving you 2. Now with that's out of the way, let's actually try to tackle the problem right over here. So let's think about its domain and let's think about its rank. So the domain here, the possible you can view them as X values or input. Into this thing that could be a function that's definitely a relation, you could have a negative 3. Negative 3. You could have a negative 2. You could have a 0. You could have a negative 2. You could have a well, we already listed a negative 2. So that right over there, or you could have a positive 3. Those are the possible value that this relation is definite. For that you could input now during here these are the possible output. Of the numbers that are associated with the number is the domain. The rank includes 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Five, 6, and 8. I could have drawn this with a big code like this, and I could have done this with a code like this, but here we're showing the exact numbers in the domain and the range. And now let's draw the actual association. So negative 3 is associated with 2, it's mapped to 2. So negative 3 maps to 2 based on this ordered pair right over here. Then we have negative 2 associated for so negative 2 is associated with 4 based on this ordered pair right over there. Actually that first ordered repairs let me that first ordered pairs. I don't want to get you confused. We have 0 is associated with 5, associated with 5, 0, or sometimes people say it's mapped to 5. We have negative 2 is mapped to 6. Now this is interesting. Negative 2 is already mapped to something. Now this ordered pairs is saying it's also mapped to 6. And then finally I will do this in a color that I haven't used used yet, although I used almost all of them. We have 3 is mapped to 8. To 8. 3 is mapped to 8. So the question here, is this a function? And for it to be a function for any member of the domain, you have to know what is going. It can only map to one member of the ring. So -3, if you put -3 as the input into the function, you know it's going to output 2. If you put -2 into the input of the function, all of a sudden you get confused. Do I output 4 or do I output 6? So you don't know if you output 4 or you output 6. And because there's this function, this is not a function. You have a member of the domain that maps to multiple members of the ring. So this strike over here is not a function, not a function, not a function, not a function.
Example 1. Function f stated by formula fx is px plus q if f0 is mean 20 and f4 is 24, then the values of p and q are respectively. Answer. F0 is mean 20, then P0 plus Q is 20. Q is mean 20. F4 is 24. Then P4 plus Q is 24. P4 plus Q is mean 20 is 24. P4
is 24 plus 20. P4 is 44. P is 44 over 4. P is 11. Then P is 11 and Q is min 20.
Example 2. The formula of a function is expressed by v x to x plus 20 if v is 120. The value of is answer. Vx is 2x plus 20. V is 120. Then 2 plus 20 is 120. 2a is 120 negative 20. 2a is 100. A is 100 over 2. E is